Hello, transitions. Hope all is well. We're diving into our next unit, Unit 13, and this is all going to focus on exponents. Okay, but before we do that, let's learn a few terms that we'll be using a lot in this unit. So if you go ahead and look at number 1, you can see a couple different parts. You can see a bigger number, and you can see a smaller number. Okay, well the bigger number, so the 2, this is what we call the base. Okay, this is the base. Okay, the bases should be the same. Okay, in order to do operations. If they're not the same, that means we cannot simplify. Then we have another part of this problem, and that's the smaller number, which we know is called the exponent. Okay, it's called the exponent. So again, you want bases to be the same so you can work with the exponents. Okay, so in multiplication rule, pretty much what that means is if you're multiplying, that means you have to add your exponents. Okay, so if we're looking at this problem here, I've got 2 to the third and 2 to the second. If you wanted to, you could expand that out as much as you wanted. So we know 2 to the third is 3 2's. So 2, 2, 2. Having trouble writing my 2's today. Okay, and then we can see that we're multiplying, because that's what that dot is, to 2 to the second power. And so that would be 2 2's. So 2, 2. So pretty much we're multiplying all of these 2's together. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And if you were to plug that in your calculator, we would get 32. Okay, but what if those exponents were in the hundreds? Okay, you don't want to write out 100 2's. So the easiest way of doing this is taking those exponents when they have the same base and adding them together. So we'd have the same base, but then change that exponent. So 3 plus 2 gives me 5. Then in our calculator, we can go ahead and plug in 2 to the 5th power, and we can see that that's 32. So same thing. Okay, so there's our first problem. Let's go ahead and do that same thing with the second problem. Okay, so the first thing we got to check is, are the bases the same? So yes, I have a 3 and I have a 3. That means they're the same. So we know our answer is going to have a base of a 3 as well. Okay, then we can go ahead and look at our exponents. So our exponents in this problem, I've got a 2 and a 2. And we know that when you are multiplying, you add exponents. So 2 plus 2 gives me 4. So then our final answer here in our calculator, we're going 3 to the power of 4. And that would give us 81. So I know we're doing virtual learning, and a lot of us might not have a handheld calculator. If you turn your phone to the side, a lot of the times that exponent does pop up. But keep in mind, you could also use Desmos. Okay, Desmos has that option for you to evaluate those exponents. Okay, so let's talk about it when it's not a number. Okay, and so in number 3, we're looking, our base is x. Okay, I've got an x here, I've got an x here, so I know my answer is also going to have the base of x. Okay, well let's go ahead and take a look at those exponents. So my exponents, I've got 3 and I've got 5, but again we can see that we're multiplying, so we're going to add those two numbers together. So 3 plus 5 gets us 8. And again, you could check that out by going, hey, well if this is x to the 3, that's 3 x's, 1, 2, 3. And then, hey, that's x to the 5th, so that's 5 x's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just count all of those x's, which you could see you would have x to the 8th. Okay, let's keep going on to number 4. Okay, so number 4 is a little different because you notice that that first y variable does not have an exponent. So when something does not have an exponent, that means it has a power of 1, meaning there's just one of them. So right now we can see that we still have the same base. We have a y here, a y here, a y here. So I know my answer is going to start with a y. So once you have that base, now let's go ahead and take a look at those exponents. So my exponents here, I've got a 1, I've got a 2, and I've got a 5. And we can add those together. So 1 plus 2 gives me 3, and 3 plus 5 gives me 8. So my final answer here is y to the 8th. All right, let's take it further. Number 5. Okay, you can see this one's a little bit longer, but notice where the multiplication dots are. Okay, so it kind of separates this problem. So first, let's go through and look at each variable and see, does it have an exponent or do we need to add that exponent? So you can see that first one, the x needs a 1, this y needs a 1, and then we are all good. Everything has an exponent. So because this problem has multiple variables, we can only combine the ones that are the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our first variable x. Okay, so I've got an x here, I've got an x here, I've got an x here. So that means I'm going to have some type of x in my answer. So just take those x exponents and add them together. So I got 1 plus 2, which gives me 3, and then 3 plus 3 gives me 6. So I'd have x to the 6th. But I'm still not done yet because I have that other variable. I got that y. Okay, so again, here's my y, here's my y, here's my y. Let's go ahead and add those exponents together so we can have a y in our answer. So I've got 2 plus 1, which gives me 3, plus 3, which gives me 6. So my final answer here is x to the 6th, y to the 6th. Okay, you can't just add all of the numbers there because they need to have the same base. So only add the x exponents together and only add the y exponents together. Alright, so we got one more to practice that skill, and that is number 6. Okay, so for number 6, remember our first step, we need to go through and add the numbers that don't have exponents. So that x needs a 1, the y needs a 1, the z needs a 1, this y needs a 1, this z needs a 1. Okay, and then you can see we've got 3 different variables. Okay, so let's start with x, okay, and let's only add the x exponents. So I've got an x here, I've got an x here, and I've got an x here. Okay, so I've got a 1 plus 2, which gives me 3, and then plus 4, which gives me 7. Okay, so I've got x to the 7th for my first part of my answer. Okay, but I'm not done because I have a y as well. So here's y, here's y, here's a y. So I got 1 plus 1 giving me 2 plus 4 giving me 6. So y to the 6th. And then lastly, I need to take care of my z. So I've got z to the 1, z to the 2. So 1 plus 2 gives me 3. And then z to the 1, which gives me z to the 4th. Okay, and that's our final answer. So take what has the same exponent, add them together, and you can do it. All right, guys, good luck. We will talk more tomorrow. See ya.